I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Andy, you want to take the roll call?
Mike Hobson,
Here.
Marilyn Bertley,
Here.
Deborah Nelson,
Here.
Don Banny,
Here.
Ann Schweddy,
Here.
Jessica Stickles,
Here.
Michelle Bly.
Here.
Oh, that's good, Mom. Yeah, that is.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Question?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we'll jump right into our workshop items this evening. And the first step is an appointment to the Civil Service Commission. And we have James Treefry with us.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, Mr. Ross, I come before you tonight regarding the appointment to the Civil Service Commission recommendation for Sloan Buchanan. The Civil Service Commission Select Committee met on March 11th of this year and interviewed 2 candidates for the position left vacant when Councilmember Blythe got elected to the council. It was determined that Ms. Sloan Buchanan had the most relevant experience between the candidates interviewed and was the best choice for the position. The selection committee enthusiastically recommends her appointment for confirmation by the council. By way of background, Holly grew up in Illinois and Pennsylvania. She attended the University of Colorado, and upon graduation into the Army Nurse Corps. That led to what she describes as a wonderful career in many geographical locations with great jobs at each location. During that time, she was also able to attend the University of Washington, earn her MSN. Once Holly retired, she moved to Arlington, where she'd been involved in various community groups and activities over the years. She was aboard of the Cocoon House for several years, is presently on the board of Arlington Dollars for Scholars, and serves as a volunteer chaplain for the fire and police departments in Cascade Valley Hospital. Free time, she enjoys reading, ballroom dancing, and riding her bike on the Centennial Trail. And I gave her the credentials to get in on the Zoom. I didn't see if she had joined or not. It looks like she's then muted currently. So yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, James. I'll just go through and we'll do roll call. Hi, Holly, welcome. First, Jan.
Yes, I'm totally approving of it.
Okay, well, we'll make the final
Oh,
appointment next Monday. We're just at a workshop, so
okay.
we'll see if anybody has any questions or
No,
comments.
I don't have any questions. I know Holly.
All right, Mike,
No questions here.
Marilyn,
No, we're happy to have her. She's great.
Michelle.
Yeah, Holly, having left that position and being on that commission for a year, that is such a wonderful place to start, an opportunity and to learn from such great people that work in with our city. So I've gotten to know you quite well, and I think it would just be a fantastic time for you, and you'll learn a lot there. So.
Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you, Holly, for being willing to serve, and just your participation in our city is always so appreciated. So you're great.
Thank you, Dawn.
Yes, Holly, thank you for your service you're going to do for us. And like Deborah says, for everything you do for our city, we appreciate it.
Jessica.
No questions. I think Holly will be great.
I concur with that. Holly, thank you for volunteering for the role. I think it's a great selection.
I don't know if I'm allowed to say anything, but I will. Thank you for your comments. That was very encouraging. Thank you.
Okay, so move on to our next item, which is professional service agreement with Dow LLC for construction management services for the 2020 airport improvement projects. And we have Marty Ray and Lorene Robinson with us this evening.
Madam Mayor and council persons, this item's for the professional services agreement with Dow for construction management services for the 2020 airport improvement projects, and for also a resolution rejecting all bids from those projects that we just received recently. The airport improvements projects were approved as part of the airport's biannual budget and involved the following: design, construction, and construction management services for the runway 1634 lighting project, taxiway Bravo lighting project, and taxiway Bravo overlay project. This contract is not to exceed $242,035. The airport staff advertised the 2020 airport improvements project to the Builders Exchange and Daily Journal. After bid opening, it was determined both bids contained discrepancies, and the staff is recommending rejection of all bids and rebidding the project. And I'm glad to answer any questions.
Okay, so I'll do the roll call again for questions, and I'll start with you, Jan.
I just wanted to ask, because I don't remember at the meeting, but what were the discrepancies?
We received 2 bids, and there were discrepancies for required items in the bid package, including Buy American. One of them had no DBE program. Mathematical errors. There was some lack of relative experience was demonstrated. Lack of intent. That's a form that was not completed by one of the bidders, and no required subcontractor list, which is a state requirement.
Oh, okay, thank you.
So between the 2 of them, they missed a lot of things. The numbers were real good, but we need it right.
Oh, sure, absolutely, especially with that amount of money and the federal funding. Yeah.
Thanks for that question, Jan. That was great. Mike, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I might not be looking at this correctly, but when I see 2 different numbers here, I see one for $242,035, and then I see another number on the second page that's $262, $442. So I'm missing something. Are there 2
Mike,
different things going on?
That's for the design services. We just put that in as history, letting you guys know that that design professional services agreement with Dow Engineering was approved at January's meeting. And this one that we're bringing forward to the council members today is for construction management services.
So they are two different projects.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, same project, different services.
Okay, all right. Okay, this confused me a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Marilyn?
No, I have no further questions.
Okay. Michelle?
Do we pay then to rebid?
There'll be additional advertising costs, and but that's about it.
Okay. Dave gave me quite a bit of time today answering some questions, so
Okay,
thank
good.
you.
Mm-hmm.
Deborah?
No questions.
Dawn?
Nope, none from me.
Jessica?
Yeah, I was wondering on the grant funding for this, because it mentions FAA funding, but on page 25 where it breaks it out by percentage, it just has X's there.
Lorraine, you want to answer that? I think that refers to the WashDOT grants that we've applied for, and they haven't been issued. We're not really expecting to get that money, but we did apply for it anyway.
Okay, so in the case that we do receive it, would they manage it or would we manage it?
No, they have their own management structure as far as accountability, but we would be managing the funds.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody have any additional questions after that? Thank you, Marty. Thank you, Lorraine.
You bet. Thank you.
So next up, we have an amendment to the contract with Murray Smith for the Cascade Industrial Center project. Jim Kelly.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, council members. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. This item before you is an amendment to the existing contract that we have with Murray Smith to design infrastructure improvements to support the Cascade Industrial Center south of SR 531. Infrastructure improvements include sewer, water, and communication. There is a developer going in there, the 51st Avenue Urban Village, and they were originally going to design the infrastructure that was needed, the sewer extension, water main extension to their facilities. It became a little bit entangled in their schedule, and we're taking over the design. They will be doing the construction on this. So we are requesting an increase to the Murray Smith contract in the amount of $138,611 for the design of lift station 16, force mains, gravity sewers, water main, and communication conduit.
Okay, Jan, do you have any questions?
Well, this is kind of far reaching, Jim, but on the CIC, all of, if it's within Arlington city limits, it will be our responsibility to pay for the infrastructure. If it's within Marysville, it will be their responsibility. How does that work?
That is correct. We take care of all the utilities inside the city of Arlington, and Marysville takes care of the utilities in their city limits. There are a couple overlap areas where Marysville has given back service area to the city of Arlington. One of those areas is within this this location where we're going to be designing. That area is in between 51st Avenue and 43rd from SR 531 south to city limits.
Okay, yeah, I know. I've been out there. I've seen it. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mike, do you have any questions?
Yeah, just to refresh my memory, is this the project that has been grandfathered in terms of the CIC? In other words, I think this is the mixed use project, right? You've got residential and industrial as a mix. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and that in order to have this approved, that this had to be grandfathered in. Otherwise, the residential would not fit within the CIC guidelines. Am I correct on that?
That is my understanding, but I would defer any questions regarding zoning and grandfathering in to Mark Hayes.
Mark, do you want to make a comment on that? I saw you shaking your head.
Hi, so the 51st Avenue Urban Center is actually, it was a mixed use overlay because it was commercial zoned. They applied the mixed use overlay to this area. So it was not grandfathered in, it was their right.
Oh, so it's
for use of the
commercial.
property.
Okay, so it's a commercial mixed use, not a residential. It's commercial.
Well, it was commercially zoned. They could use the mixed use overlay on the commercial zoning in order to get their residential use.
Okay, and then that commercial zoning fit or did not fit within the CIC, or did we have to get a grandfather? It seemed like I remember something like this.
No, it's just that because it is a mixed use, so the mixed use was allowed to be on that commercial zoning. It was the last of the overlays that we allowed in the CIC area, simply because we need to reserve the remaining properties for manufacturing industrial uses.
Okay, thank you very much. I think I'm off here for a second. I need to get back in. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Marilyn?
I don't have any questions, no.
Thank you. Michelle?
I don't have any.
Okay, Deborah?
I have a couple. So one, I was just curious, Jim, because I remember on the north side, when Airport Boulevard was being built, there was high water table issues that cost the city quite a bit. Are we concerned about that on the south side? It's not that far away, and I know there's a lot of high water in that area.
Yes, we are concerned about that. And we're trying to design this as best we can to make it as high as possible while still being able to reach via gravity the whole development, the 160 acres.
So you're recalling what you had to do about 8 years ago and applying that
Yes,
here? Okay, good. And then I just had a question on, I don't know if I was reading it correctly or if it's not worded quite right, but in this cab under city responsibilities, I can't tell on my iPad what page it is, but item, point number 3 says city or developer will be responsible for preparing permits, easements, coordinating projects, etc. So is it the city responsible, or is it the development part responsible, or is it both?
The city is responsible. The developer, he has a little bit over $2 million worth of connection fees. And what he will be doing is he will be doing construction in lieu of connection fees.
Okay.
But we'll be going through the full design. We'll be getting any type of right of way, any other type of permits that we need to for this construction.
Okay, and then under assumptions, right under that, number 1 says architecture, structural, HVAC and plumbing designs for lift station 16 will be completed by others. So is that contractors?
No, this is a partnership that we're working with Paul Woodmansey. He is the developer for the 51st Avenue Urban Village, and he is creating a community center that will have restrooms, and also one side of it will be used as a movie theater. We're going to be going inside of that facility with our lift station equipment, our emergency generator, our controllers, and our power meters. We're also going to be putting a point of connection in there for Brian's fiber optic.
Okay, thank you. I just needed that clarification. No, it looks like a great project, and I'm happy to see us partnering with the developer so we can get these water connections in there. So great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Deborah. Don?
Only question I got is back to Deborah's first question on the high water table out there. Is the developer knowing this, and eventually, if it is issues, is he willing to pay the extra expenses to fix anything required?
The amount of his expenses will be limited to the amount of his connection fees. Anything above and beyond the connection fees that he's going to be connecting to, we will pick up the cost. However, as what I believe Deborah was saying about the high water table, we did learn our lessons on Airport Boulevard and the 173rd extension, so we know how to deal with the high water tables. So since the contractor will be building this, we'll definitely pass along that information to him.
Okay.
Is it done?
I said thanks.
Thank you. Jessica?
Yeah, I had a couple. So on the cab for the budgeted amounts is not originally budgeted for 2020. When was it originally budgeted for?
This was not budgeted going south across. It wasn't budgeted right now, but since this area is developing, we're moving forward and we're putting our utilities south of what SR 531.
Okay, so my other question then was, we're doing it now. Actually, I just want to clarify then, we're doing it now because this is when the developer's doing the groundwork. So there's like a savings there, or is it just because you see the growth coming quickly?
We see the growth coming quickly. This isn't the only development that's out there, so we need to get some infrastructure in the ground. This project also has us putting everything underneath SR 531 before the widening goes in.
Oh, yeah.
So I guess what I'm confused about is if normally we do this type of infrastructure work as the developer is tearing up the ground, right? Because they're already paying for that. Why do we want to do this part earlier? Like, why do we need to do this before the development?
The developer will be constructing this summer.
Okay. But my question is why aren't we doing it at the same time? Am I not wording it right?
Well, first of all, we have to do the design work. The design work is going to take quite a bit of time to get the design work completed. So we need to prepare drawings and do the specifications, do calculations, and size the infrastructure. And then we'll turn over the construction drawings to the developer who will be out there and then he will build the infrastructure.
Okay, so the goal then is to get the design done before so that we can partner with them to actually do the
Yes.
Okay. Okay, that makes more sense. Thank you. And then can you reiterate what you were saying? I believe to Deborah's question, the developer is going to be doing 2 million in what instead of what again?
He's going to be, his connection fees will amount to approximately $2.2 million. And instead of paying the connection fees, he'll be doing construction in lieu of connection fees. So he will be doing an equivalent amount of construction.
Of our infrastructure.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks, Jessica. I'll get to you in just 1 second, Deborah. Jim, I just wanted to clarify at the beginning of when you started to explain this contract that then the developer will reduce the amount that they get to do work for us from by the amount of this design contract.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Deborah, did you have an additional question?
Well, just a lead off of what Jessica just asked and what Jim had answered me earlier, and I think you alluded to it, Barb, is so when the developer does that work, Jim, he's basically saving the city money, correct? Because he's able to pay the wages that he can pay rather than us having to pay higher wages.
That is correct. And we also save a little bit on the design cost because we don't have to build that, we don't have to prepare documents to public biddable standards. We can give the contractor what needs to go in the ground, and he knows, you know, elevations, northing, easterns, he knows how to build it.
Okay, great, thank you.
Any other questions on this one? Thank you, Jim. Let's move to your next item, which is the contract with Petit for the update to the 173rd Phase 1 design. Happy to see this one on here.
Thank you and a bunch of neighbors also. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. This item before you is to update the design drawings for the 173rd Phase 1 project. We started designing 173rd between Smoky Point Boulevard and Airport Boulevard back in 2013. Over the time, we've put in some utilities, and there's been a few changes in the roadway alignment, and we're now ready to move forward with construction of 173rd Phase 1. This section of the road is the far west section. It starts at Smoky Point Boulevard, and it extends about 350 feet past where 40th Avenue connects into 173rd. Some of the updates that we'll be doing to this design is we will be putting in City of Arlington street lighting. We'll be extending our water main that was left off at 40th Avenue down to Smoky Point Boulevard. We will be addressing all the extra earthwork that was put in to see how we have to regrade the road. And we will also be putting in a different type of a low-cost storm drain system. We have been putting in a lot of rain gardens as our low impact drainage systems, but they seem to require a lot of maintenance. We have some equally ecologically friendly storm systems that have been approved by Department of Ecology, and we will be putting them in on this project. However, they will not require anywhere near the amount of maintenance that a rain garden requires. And then lastly, we will also be designing and constructing a sound and privacy fence for the neighbors that border the north side of this alignment.
Thank you, Jim. Jan, do you have any questions on this?
No, I think I'm good on that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mike?
No questions.
Marilyn?
No questions.
Good to see 173rd get in.
Yes.
Michelle?
Well, are there still complaints by neighbors? Because I was reading in that piece that you kind of went to lengths to make sure that their concerns were addressed, or is everyone okay with that now? Just curious.
I still get complaints from the neighborhood there since the fences were taken down for construction and all of the trees that were a barrier were removed. So.
Oh, okay. So then it's all getting put back up, or what you're doing something in place of that.
Something to restore there.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, Deborah.
Yes, I have a few questions. First of all, Jim, do we have funding for the construction of phase 1 of the road yet?
Yes, we do.
Can you remind me was that a grant we got
No, this was coming out of the city's transportation impact fees.
to completion, huh?
Yes, we're estimating this is going to be about $1.6 million.
Okay, excellent. Do we still have the 2013 design of that road, and is it usable at all, or is that gone?
No, we still have the 2013 design, and what they're going to be doing is updating that design to add the components that I just discussed. The enhanced storm drainage system, street lighting, an extension of the water main, a privacy fence, an 8-foot tall privacy and sound attenuating fence. And also to check, come up with a new profile, because that has been used as a construction road by the contractor, and they brought in a lot of gravel and fill. So we have to move that around.
So my concern is with the privacy fence is I'm hoping it's not going to be like a big cement wall, because that just is not attractive to a neighborhood. And I'd like to make sure this looks like a neighborhood type of a situation. And the same with the low impact design for drainage is, I'm hoping that's not just a strip of cement because of runoff and stuff. So can you ease my fears there?
Yes, I can. Let me just describe this road. This road is going to be very much like Arlington Valley Road. You're going to have a 12-foot wide trail on one side with drainage, and on the other side, there isn't going to be any pedestrian access way. The neighbors did not want to have a sidewalk abutting their backyards for fear of any type of vandalism. What we will be putting between the curb and the sound and privacy fence is going to be an 8-foot landscape strip. We looked at a couple different types of sound attenuating fences, and we've discussed several with the neighbors. We are going to become a little bit more formalized with our presentation, but what we were looking at are more of a plastic type of fence that can attenuate the sound, but also be 8 feet tall so that it does provide privacy.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Don, did you have any questions?
Nope, I think Deborah took care of all of mine.
Okay, maybe I'll swap the order and call on you first next time. Jessica?
Yeah, I have a question that might be for Paul. So the 75,000 that was budgeted in 2019, how come that didn't automatically roll over? Could you try again? How come it didn't automatically roll over to the 2020 budget if it was work that was still outstanding?
I'm not sure what funding you're referring to. So
on the cab under budgeted.
Oh, okay. Well, we didn't, it just went back into the fund. We didn't budget for it because at the time we didn't know we were going to do the work this year. So
if I can answer that, I think that we were waiting to see if we got the funding for the light at 40th, because that makes this project now necessary when we put the S curbing on 531 when WASDOT does that. So there's no left turns through there. That light at 40th is going to provide the circulation, but we needed to have ways to dump not all the traffic coming out on 172nd. So it was sort of a sequence of things, and we weren't sure in this last round if we were going to get the funding. We thought we'd get it out of the state legislature, but it actually came from the TIB earlier this year. They did grant that funding for the light.
Okay.
Yeah, that is correct.
My other question is, well, a couple of them. One for Jim is there any communication conduit planned in this roadway?
No.
Okay, because it's off the main.
There's nothing to connect to.
Okay. well, a lot of it's not going to have anything to connect to yet, but are you saying like there wouldn't be any use to have it because we'll have it on Smoky Point Boulevard and 172nd already, or what are your thoughts?
I have not spoken with Brian about this. But as the design's going forward, I will bring Brian to the table.
Okay, thank you. And then my last question is, can we make it standard for these types of projects to include a map so that we have a visual of where the work's going to be performed, especially as the workload's going to continue to grow and these other projects are coming forward?
I will include a graphic with all of my tabs when possible.
Awesome. And this one, do you have one that you could add with this one?
I do.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Jessica.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, council members.
Thank you, Jim. I'm really excited for this neighborhood, for this project to go forward.
I'm surprised, I'm sure that there are a couple people, I told them about me bring this to council. They're all excited about getting a privacy fence, and some of them might be on YouTube watching.
I hope they are, and I want to say that I thank them for working with us so diligently. It's been a long time, and it's been on and off again, but now that it's subtly moving forward, I hope that they can take some relief from that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll move to the next item, which is the ordinance to extend the land use deadlines, land use deadlines due to COVID-19. Mark Hayes. Welcome, Mark.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. So the ordinance before you this evening is in response to the governor's proclamation, the stay home, stay healthy order. It's twofold. It actually protects both the developer and the city. So the developer doesn't have to worry about a project that he hasn't been able to work on expiring because of no work being done. It also protects the city so that we don't exceed our shot clock for land use permits, the 128 days that we need to have. So it does two things at the same time. So it covers our land use processes.
Great, thank you, Mark. Jan, any questions?
No, I have none.
Okay. Mike, any questions?
No questions.
Marilyn?
No, seems logical to me.
Michelle?
Nope, sounds wonderful. Thank you.
Deborah?
No questions.
Dawn?
Nope, none. Pretty simple.
Yeah, pretty straightforward. Jessica? All right. Mark, I thank you for bringing this. I hope this is the last of our regulatory impacts of COVID-19 and the governor's stay home, stay safe order.
Right. We have been able to keep up on all permitting. We were still conducting business as usual, but this is a good safeguard. So thank you.
Thank you. So next up is the ordinance to amend certain sections of Arlington Municipal Code, particularly chapter 20.64 relating to floodplain regulations and declaring an emergency. Mark Hayes.
Great, thank you. This ordinance is had to be done as an emergency simply because the deadline for these updates take place are June 19th of this year. And with public hearings not occurring, we would not be able to make that deadline. So FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, does routine flood hazard determinations, and that changes the flood insurance rate maps. And as a part of that update, requires us to relook at our floodplain ordinances and change any language that that they believe is necessary. And so that's exactly what this has done.
Okay, Jan, do you have any questions?
Were there any specific rules that were changed, Mark?
No, it wasn't a large impact at all. There were just some language changes in this. The one thing that did come out of this is that we've been trying to incorporate our flood hazard permit process. And so we included that in this ordinance with this revision.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Mike?
No questions.
Marilyn?
No questions.
Michelle?
I learned a lot about this today. I have no questions now.
Don?
Nope, I don't have any.
Okay, Deborah?
No questions.
Jessica?
No, thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Next up is ordinances to update our code enforcement processes. Marquez.
Madam Mayor, if I might, I'm going to take over for Mark on this one because I'm the one who's been primarily responsible for marshaling it through.
That's great. And that's Steve Pifel, the city attorney. I appreciate that, Steve.
Yes. So, Madam Mayor and members of the council, first of all, I want to thank Mark and his staff, particularly Nalini and Chief Ventura, for working with me for the last month or so on updating the code enforcement provisions of our code. There are two different ordinances that are here. The purpose of that is we pulled out the nuisance provision of the code and made it a standalone chapter. And then we updated our enforcement processes in a way that allows us to use those enforcement processes not only for nuisances, but for other types of code violations throughout the Arlington Municipal Code. So the principal changes or differences between the ordinance, for one thing, what we wanted to do was a code scrub to bring this current. It's been probably 15 years or so since we really updated this code in a comprehensive way. The nuisance provisions, the major change that we incorporated into the nuisance chapter was to include a definition for chronic nuisances. And Chief Ventura will confirm that one of the biggest problems that we have currently within the city with respect to code enforcement are certain properties where the police are called to the site tens of or hundreds of times a year even. And our current code doesn't make that illegal or doesn't really give us much of an enforcement mechanism. So this code revision changes that, gives law enforcement the tools to try to put pressure on the owner to address the issue when police are being called on a constant basis to a particular address or location. Mayor Tolbert had asked me the question about whether removing graffiti from the ordinance in the nuisance definition simply took that out of the enforcement realm. And I wanted to address that tonight by reassuring everyone, we still have graffiti regulations in place. They're just located in Title 9. The criminal code section has a process that's very similar. So it doesn't change that. It just makes it clear that the graffiti ordinance is regulated through Title 9, and the other nuisances will be regulated through Title 7. So wanted council to be aware of that. The other ordinance, the second ordinance, is the one that updates our enforcement processes. And again, this is primarily one that a change that gives us some additional tools or clarifies specific ways in which we can do code enforcement. We want to make sure that we give our CED staff and our code enforcement officer the ability to deal with problem areas. Some of the changes that we made was we do remain oriented to voluntary compliance. It's our goal to make sure that property owners know what the rules are and that we get them to comply to the extent possible voluntarily by entering into voluntary agreements with the city to clean up their properties or fix whatever code violations are in existence. If that doesn't work, we can go to a notice and order arrangement where we tell them you violated the code, now you have to fix it. And last, always the last resort is to go to court for enforcement through the court system. The existing code regulations contain some inconsistent language that we've fixed through this process. We've added some provisions that weren't very clear for using stop work orders. If someone is in violation of the code, makes it real clear what the process is for us to issue a stop work order to make sure that people stop doing illegal things. So we're likely to bring back to you next week a code or an ordinance that looks very slightly different. Mark and I have been talking about it. We want to, I want to change one thing, which simply has to do with the public hearing process. We're going to adopt this ordinance without a public hearing. There are some provisions that we are going to bring back to the council that are related to our development code. Those require a public hearing, and of course, because we're not having public hearings right now, those have not been included in this ordinance. So that's a fairly lengthy explanation. I usually am not so wordy about these things, but I wanted you to have a clear understanding of what we were trying to accomplish, and I'm happy to answer any questions that council does have.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate the lengthy description. Jan, do you have any questions?
Yes, I was really excited when I actually saw this. Last year, I dealt the entire year with a drug house next door, and I really felt bad because it wasn't just me that was calling the police, but all the neighbors around. And I swear they were here every single day, and that just sucked up their time when they could be doing something else. And it was one of those situations to where the owner has dementia, was in a home, and it took a while to get all of the legal stuff taken care of. But from what this is saying, is that going to help with some of the drug house things, that we can get them out of there faster than that?
Absolutely. That's one of the very specific goals that we started with when we began this process. We have several properties within the city that are likely going to be, we're going to use these ordinances to try to clean up those properties and eliminate the number of times that law enforcement has to go out to the properties. So that's, a year ago, we wouldn't have had the right tools really to deal with that, or at least the tools that we had were different. So this will help for sure in addressing those kinds of cases.
That's great. I think a lot of times the citizens don't understand when we can't react because we don't have the proper legal tools to do so. Marilyn, did you have any questions?
No, thank you.
Michelle?
I have a comment, no questions. I did a couple ride-alongs this year and went to a couple of those locations that seem to have repeat visits by our law enforcement. And my question was, well, gosh, can't we do anything about it? And we can't. So I also was very excited to see this change. So I think it's important to give our law enforcement the tools to be able to create those safe environments for everybody to live in. So this was pretty exciting for me to see also, like you, Jan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mike, did you have any questions?
I just had kind of a related question. I was wondering if this would also apply to, you talked about a stop work order, that would this apply to, for instance, the coronavirus stay-at-home regulations, and where different businesses need to shut down, like restaurants, and it used to be construction, now it's not so much. But would this also apply in those situations, or is this simply those situations that you have described?
Thank you.
Okay. My answer is no. I don't think this really would have anything to do with enforcement of the COVID regulations or the governor's proclamation. That would have to be done through a different code provision.
Okay. Sorry, I put myself somewhere. Thank you very much. I was curious.
Something's happening with your audio, Mike, and it's not pleasant on this end. Don, did you have any questions?
No, I just one comment. Glad this is happening. I appreciate it.
Could you mute your mic so the feedback goes away for a moment? Thank you.
Go
ahead, Don.
Yeah, another comment. I'm glad this is finally happening. I mean, I've seen a lot of people complaining and all the issues, and I've witnessed the extent that the law enforcement has to go through to clean these places up. But I'm finally glad that this helped them speed up the process.
Deborah.
No, just thank you for working on this. And we've come a long way since I had the drug house on my corner 8 years ago. So it's nice to see how we've progressed as a city in being responsive to neighborhoods to help protect them for safety. So thank you. Great teamwork.
If I can respond to your comment, Deborah, one of the things the council did is you funded a code enforcement officer position. And what that has done is it's made clear where we need to add some tools and resources for that purpose. So we have come a long way, and in part it's because we're just dealing with it more, and now we're going to be able to deal with it more efficiently.
Thank you.
Jessica.
Just a comment that I appreciate the two departments working together. It's so important, and I agree with Michelle. This is very necessary. So thank you.
And I just want to remind those listening in that may have this problem in their neighborhood. We're going over the ordinance this evening, and we'll be passing it next week. So the police still won't have the tools this week. Just want to give you a heads up on that. Hey, Steve, thank you for the great explanation.
You're welcome.
Appreciate the work. Okay, so the next up is camera system for council chambers. Brian Terry.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of council. As you're aware, during the stay home, stay healthy order from the governor, the city council meetings have been conducted in Zoom format, which is probably not the best way to do it after COVID-19, but IT is recommending a permanent solution to stream city council meetings using YouTube and then broadcasting that also to TV 21. The cost of equipment is approximately $18,107.83. However, we're asking for a not to exceed amount of $20,000 for the purchase of the system and any additional expenditures such as cabling and connectors. This will be funded through the Comcast Public Education and Government Access Channel Capital Fund, which is dedicated to the broadcast equipment that supports TV 21. The fund has a balance of $33,962.41, and the FCC requires cable franchises to support public access television, and these funds can only be used to support TV 21. This is an unbudgeted item, so I'm asking for a budget amendment for the 2020 budget, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. And I'll say it's been impressive to hear from citizens who really like the access to our council and commission meetings on YouTube. It's very easy to do. So, and it's great that we can finally come into this phase, even though through an emergency. Jan, did you have any questions?
Sort of. I know with PSRC, you could call in and you could see the whole thing. And as people spoke, they were on screen, like I'm seeing Dawn right now. So is that going to be to where when, say the mayor is speaking, she's the one that's on when individually, or is it going to be just the whole room?
Well, we'll have a 3-camera system that will we'll have presets to pan in right into each individual council member and staff, as well as a wide shot as well. So we'll be doing the switching back in the control room.
Okay,
Like
I'm thrilled. People are excited that they're able to see us.
Jen, you could set your Zoom on gallery view, and then you could see us all on the screen at one time.
Oh, really? Okay.
Ask Ashley how to do that. Mike, do you have any questions?
How was my audio?
Oh, much better. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
No, that was my only question. Thank you.
Okay. Marilyn?
No, I think this will be very well accepted. Good thing.
Michelle?
I don't have any questions.
Okay. Dawn?
The question I had for Brian was on the channel 21. Is there a way we could, because I know there's so many people within the city that got direct or dish TV and stuff, is there any way they can get access to this? Because like me, I'm on direct and I have none of it.
Yeah.
Right. So TV 21 is only for Comcast subscribers. However, we're going to live stream it to YouTube, so that gives you better visibility.
Okay.
And that works really well. I watched the last planning commission live streamed on YouTube. It was super easy to do.
Yeah, no, I watched the last planning one too as well. And it was really nice. But I was just curious if there was some way at some point, some of the other subscribers to different TV options would be able to get that.
Deborah, do you have any questions?
Brian, thank you for bringing us into the modern century.
You're very welcome.
Yes.
Jessica?
I just had a question about the playback software. So I know YouTube kind of has its own way of doing it, but will we also have the videos posted on our website?
We'll have a link posted to the YouTube channel where you can watch them there.
Okay, so if we're just playing back through YouTube, then we probably can't like tag the attachments so that there's an easy fast forward point, right? It would have to just be skim through it yourself.
Yes, if you want to do it, if you want to do indexing of the agenda, that requires a monthly subscription from a third-party vendor that is fairly expensive.
Okay, that was my only question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Okay, and last but certainly not least, we have the March 2020 financial report. Kristen Garcia.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of council.
Kristen, can you turn your volume up a little bit?
Is that better? Can you hear me now?
Kinda.
Kinda.
A little bit more.
Can you get closer to your microphone, perhaps?
How's that? Can you hear me now?
Yes, much better.
Okay, thanks. Well, good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. I wanted to start out tonight talking about our sales tax results. So in your packet, I put in a chart showing the first quarter sales tax results for 2020. I actually did a graph showing 2015 through 2020. Just comparing by industry what our revenues look like for what we collected January, February, and March. You can see that in first quarter as compared to previous years, our revenues are trending upward, but I wanted to talk about what that might look like for second quarter, because as you know, we've had some changes in our economy and changes in things that are happening right now. So the first thing I want to remind the council is we do have a 2-month lag from when the city collects or receives the sales tax revenues from when the consumer spends. So first quarter revenues we received January, February, and March are actually based on consumer spending November, December, and January. So that's very important to understand for the next things that I'm going to talk about. So when we have a 2-month lag between spending and collection, and then we know with COVID-19 and the governor's stay-at-home order impacts to businesses are closed, consumers aren't spending, so that will be an impact to our revenues. In addition to that, the state extended the deadline for when businesses can make their tax payments. They extended that to June 30th. So all of those factors rolling together, we can expect to see a decline in our sales tax revenues for second quarter. We won't know what those look like because of the lag between consumer and spending, but I'm working with Paul closely. Him and I meet weekly to talk about revenues, what we're seeing at our local level, regional level, and nationally. We're looking at our expenses, looking at our cash flow projections. So we are looking at that and talking about it on a weekly basis. On a similar note, I wanted to talk a little bit about property taxes. As you probably have heard, Snohomish County extended the property tax deadline to June 1st, meaning a portion of property taxpayers can extend their payment from April 30th to June 1st. So that means that the county is estimating that we could see a decline in our May tax distribution of about 40% of what we normally collect. That would be both in the general fund for our regular property tax and in our EMS fund for the EMS tax levy. So what that equates to in dollars, it's about an $800,000 difference for our general fund and what we would collect normally in May, and about $185,000 in the EMS fund. That it also means we have a couple of district contracts for fire and EMS services where they pay us for those services. Those districts are primarily reliant on their property tax and EMS tax levies. So it's very likely that they will pay us late, as they won't get their full May tax distributions as well. So I've done cash flow projections on both the general fund and the EMS fund. And based on our current assumptions, we think we have enough cash flow to make that through the June 1 deadline. So I don't think we'll have any cash flow issues, at least at this point. But again, Paul and I are monitoring that very closely. I've also reached out to Dave Kraske. Him and I are in communications on the district contracts, and he's reaching out to the districts as well to have conversations with them, so we know what that might look like in terms of their payments to us. The next item I wanted to brief council on is just an update on the 2020 refunding bonds. You might recall a couple months ago, we were going through that process. We had targeted a closing date of April 1st, and we were actually able to close the bonds on April 1st. So we have completed that process. You may recall we were pricing those bonds in mid-March when the markets were quite volatile. Things were swinging very much. They were very unstable. We actually weren't sure there right up before pricing whether we were even going to have a market for the bonds, but somehow we were able to time that in the right way, and we were able to get a pretty reasonable rate on our bonds, about 2.8%, and we saved about $709,000. So overall, I was very pleased with the results. And about 2 weeks after we priced the bonds, the basis points went up about 100. So comparing that, we saved quite a bit. If we were to wait 2 weeks to price the bonds, our interest rate would have looked a lot different. So I'm very pleased with how we came out on that. A couple staffing changes in the office, in the finance office, that I wanted to just let you know of, because you'll see some changes with respect to who will be sending the check register and the claims information to you in the near future. Kurt Patterson, he has been with the city for many years. He is retiring in May. He currently is our central purchasing coordinator. And so we're sad to see him go, but we're excited for him and his next adventure in retirement, and wish him very well. Debbie Strotz is moving into the purchasing position. So we're transitioning that now and going through training. And then Jessica Rowe will be moving into the accounts payable position. She's currently the shared position between finance and CED and handles our passports, but she'll be moving into accounts payable. So once that transition's complete, you're used to seeing information from Debbie in terms of the claims reports. Those will in the future now come from Jessica Rowe. So I just wanted to give you a heads up that you may see a new name come across your email with the claims information. And then the last item that I wanted to talk about, it wasn't in your packet, but something important that I'm tracking and thought the council might want to be aware of. In terms of how the stay-at-home order might be impacting our customers. I'm looking at what we call our shut-off list. It's our delinquent list. It's what we run every month to determine who's delinquent and who would be eligible for shut-off. We are not shutting off right now due to the resolution and the governor's orders, but that's just kind of our way to determine who's late in making payments. So I was comparing March data to April data to see how many of our customers may be financially impacted from the impacts of COVID-19. So in looking at our shut-off list in March, we had about 77 accounts on that. The previous month, actually to February, it was about 45. So we did see a little bit of a bump up in March, but in April, that number grew to 163. So that tells me that we do definitely have utility customers that are being impacted. I also looked at people who signed up for payment arrangements. So if you recall, on April 6th, Council approved a resolution which allowed us to waive late fees and shutoffs for April, May, and June for our utility customers. It also allowed us to extend the payment arrangement from a 10-day window to a 3-month window. So that was important for me to look at to see how many people are signed up for payment arrangements. And we had 13 in March, and that did increase to 21 in April. So I'm going to continue to monitor that to see how many more customers are impacted. And we are doing just courtesy calls and letters just to kind of remind people of the resources that are out there, and just to see what we can do to try to help them through this process. But I don't want people to get too far behind. So anyways, I can continue to put that in the financial packet. I didn't quite have the data for tonight, but I thought council might want to know. And on the airport side, we did something similar for the airport customers. We have not seen an increase in delinquencies from our airport customers, nor have any of those customers signed up for the payment arrangements. So the airport seems pretty stable right now.
Great information, Kristen. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm going to go around and see if anybody has any questions for Kristen on the financial report. I'll start with you, Jen.
One thing, and I know that it's going to be another month or so, but when we have the retreat that deals with the budget, God, I hate to ask, I know you guys are busy, but there's a lot of things that are going to be impacted by the situation we're in, and even with gas tax. And I was wondering if we had a list of those accounts that are impacted because of the stay-at-home thing and no one buying gas. Sales tax, that's kind of, we know, and it all comes in one place. But there are other accounts that are impacted that may not just jump out at us. And I'd really like to see, and I know that you're keeping track of related expenses, and I would assume that those things would be related expenses because we're not getting it. And so if there was some way that we had a list of all the accounts and how it did impact them.
Okay, yes, absolutely. So in addition to sales or fuel tax, because people aren't driving, absolutely, we'll see an impact there. Lodging tax would be another one, people, right? That's very tourism generated, and people aren't traveling, they aren't staying in hotels. So I suspect we're going to see an impact on our lodging tax.
Tax, because the bars are closed.
Yeah.
Tax, absolutely. And possibly Dave Kraske and I have been looking at, transport revenues as well. Calls have been down slightly. So when calls are down and they're not making transports, that could impact our revenues a little bit. So yeah, so that's a great idea, Jen. I can put a list because there are absolutely other things in sales tax that will be impacted.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Don, do you have any questions on the financials?
Just the last subject, Kristen, you were talking about the payments and stuff. Have you been getting any calls about the online payment thing being really not taking payments and stuff? I know personally here, our last 2 payments, we went 2 or 3 times around through the system trying to get it to go.
Yes, we have get calls. We've been aware of the issue. This has actually been an issue for a couple months that we've been trying to work with Express Bill Pay. They are our online payment vendor. Because of now the volume with all the stay-at-home workers, the online volume has increased, and they've been pretty clear that they don't quite have the infrastructure on their site to accommodate the volume that they're seeing right now. So 2 things. They're actually refunding us a portion of our April and May fees because we're having issues. That doesn't help our customers. But I actually had a call last week, and we're looking at alternative options because it's concerning to me that this is their sole purpose, an online payment service provider. And if they don't have the technology or the infrastructure, I think that's concerning for me to be, to offer a good service to our customers. So I'm seeking alternative options. I did have a call last week with another service provider. So we're trying to explore other options, but we have been putting information on our website and out in the e-news to let customers know that it is a challenge, and we apologize, and to call our finance office to make payment, and so we can try to help them out.
And that's why I was just curious about the total numbers that you're saying have increased this last couple of months. I'm wondering how many of them have actually just started it and then forgot.
Yeah, no, we've definitely seen an increase with the people that are now home. So yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Send them notes to remind them. So yeah. Deborah, did you have any questions on the financial statements?
Just a couple. I thank you, Jan. I think that's a great suggestion about the list. So I'll look for that too. And then just to clarify about the property taxes being delayed, and but will that balance out at the end of the year with the next payout that we get?
Yes, I'm fully expecting it to. Okay. I'm not expecting us to see a decline in our property tax revenue. It's more of a cash flow issue. Right. Where sales tax, I believe it's going to change our cash flow because of the extension of the filing deadline. But I also think we're going to see a decline because of consumer spending and how long businesses are closed. Right. But yeah, back to the property tax, I do believe that that's going to be caught up in second and third quarter, our May distribution.
Okay, and then just going along back to the payment arrangements, mm-hmm. and maybe I heard that you guys are already doing this, your staff, but as people aren't able to pay, are each one being given the opportunity to, or strongly encouraged to make payments arrangements, so that all of a sudden when this is, hopefully we're back to normal in several months, they don't have this huge bill?
Yes. Yes. So what we're doing is we're a couple of outreach things. We do a late notice to customers, just letting them know that their bill is overdue. We also do what's called an auto dialer. So the week before that we would normally do a shut off, we've changed our messaging a little bit because we're not shutting off now, but we do, hey, your bill is past due, please contact our office to make a payment arrangement. Okay. So every time that we touch a customer, we do try to encourage them to enter into a payment arrangement and to make whatever payment they can so they don't fall too far behind. We also have incorporated an additional step because we're not shutting off. When we do run the shut off list, some of those folks that have higher balances, we're actually making personal phone calls and trying to reach out to them that way.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deborah. Jessica?
Yeah, I was just wondering, Kristen, I really like that yearly comparable chart. It like opened my eyes. I was mostly obviously surprised by the construction jump from 19 to 20. It's a really great picture. So I was wondering, are you planning to use that for quarter 2, 3, and 4 this year as well?
Absolutely, I can, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And then my other question is on the sales tax specifically, where you mentioned you're estimating about a 40% collection of what we planned. Do you think we'll make up that additional 60% in quarter 3, or are you thinking there's just going to be a hole?
For the property tax?
I'm sorry, for sales tax.
For sales tax, I'm projecting overall annually that we'll have about a 20% decline from what we collected last year. Okay. And that's pretty consistent with what I've heard regionally with other cities locally and at the state level, at least at most current information that I have available. So about a 20% decline.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mike, did you have any questions? Remember, your mute is on.
Am I okay now?
There you go.
Okay. Yeah, I was, the property tax, though, that lags a year, doesn't it? like you really don't know about the property tax revenue for till next year. Am I correct on that, that it lags a year?
It doesn't lag a year. What we receive 2 major distributions twice a year. So taxpayers pay typically on April 30th. So then we get our first large distribution, which is about 60% of our total annual collections in May. And then we receive our next big chunk in November. So for property tax, so sales tax comes in on a monthly basis, whereas property tax comes in twice a year, and then we get little bits throughout the rest of the year. So the property tax, what they did was they extended that deadline from April 30th to June 1st, meaning we won't get what we normally get for our May distribution. It'll be about 40% lower in May, but then I'm expecting come second quarter, when people meet the June 1 payment deadline, that we should see those come in July and August.
I see. And on the airport, you said that the airport, we haven't had any problems with getting money from the airport. Is that because, if I remember correctly, aren't the airport leases, you're talking about the leases, right? The airport leases.
Mm-hmm.
And on these leases, wasn't there a waiver period of 3 months or something like that, that the airport put into place, or the city put into place on behalf of the airport for those leases?
Correct. The resolution that council approved on April 6th did include a similar provision that we offered to the utility customers, similar for the airport customers as well. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Those were my questions. Thank you.
Yep. Michelle, did you have any questions?
No questions. I love looking at your data, and I agree with Jessica. It was exciting to see all those years side by side just to compare. So whenever you can do that, I think it's really interesting to see, because you can see how the city is growing, right? But no, I love your stuff.
I thought it was interesting to see the different industries, what percentage of our sales tax that was. So we can all be thinking about, we know which ones were absolutely closed down and which ones had essential parts that were still opening. So Marilyn, did you have any questions?
No, I just wanted to comment that I do like the data. It's very good. And I wanted to say congratulations on the bond. Good job.
Yeah.
Really good job. That was awesome.
Thank you.
And we also want to say congratulations to both Debbie and Jessica for their movements to new areas. Hopefully that's exciting to them.
Yeah. Yes, very much. They're very excited for their new role. So thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. So again, we didn't have any members of the public that wish to comment this evening. So we'll go through, do you have any administrative report, Paul?
Not at this time, thank you.
Okay. I just have a quick report that I just signed a proclamation this evening that tomorrow through Friday, we'll be lowering the city flags at half-mast in recognition of the 13,000 people that have died in our state from the coronavirus, and the 107 that have died in Snohomish County.
Good.
Do we have any comments from council members this evening? I'll go around and do the round table again. Don?
Nope, just lots of webinars, lots of training, getting my education.
Learning from home, just like the school kids are.
Yep, exactly.
Deborah?
No, nothing tonight. Thank you.
Jan?
Nothing, thank you.
Marilyn?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. Michelle?
Well, I guess I'll follow suit. Jan, I have to tell you, I love that background on you. It's so flattering. I'm going to have to find some trees next time. No, I'll pass tonight. Thank you.
Mike?
Yeah, I would just want to make a comment about the coronavirus. I know that we have, our governor has done things, and then the county executive, I hear from the county executive, and I hear from the mayors, put together a letter. I think that in looking at some of the other cities around the state, I do think that it's beholden upon our city council to also have some action, to make ourselves relevant to this conversation about the coronavirus. And there are some things that the city at the very local level, and we are the most local legislative body here in Arlington, and that there are some things, not many things, but there are some things that I think the city of Arlington could also do that wouldn't cost the city money, but are things that could help the citizens of our community deal with this. And I won't bother to chew your ear off about it tonight or anything, but I think maybe next week during the comment period, I'll mention something that maybe we could discuss a couple weeks from now in more detail. But I do think that we should, as a council, we should be relevant to this discussion. It's on everybody's mind. It's everywhere you look, you hear about it and talk about it. And so I think that we should play a role in that. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Jessica.
Yeah, I went to, or I don't know if I say I went to anymore, to the downtown corridor presentation from the Western Washington University students, and just so creative, these students. And I really appreciated all the time and effort they put into the planning for 50 to 100 years down the road. And it's really cool to let yourself go there, because a lot of times we're thinking up to 20 years max, but 50, 100, I mean, I'm thinking several generations past us. And it's really cool to see these students plan for that, because they'll be the ones on this screen filling it up as all our leaders within 20 years, and they're already going to have that type of mindset. So that was pretty awesome. So are there any next steps with that you know of, Mayor?
I'm glad that you brought that up, because I wanted to say it was a great presentation. I really loved the polling in it, to sort of get the flavor of how everybody viewing it. And there was about 48 participants aside from the students that were viewing the presentation. We did post it to our YouTube channel, so it should be widely available for anyone to look at. The next steps, I think, will be to synthesize some of the information from the polling that they got back. And as Lindsay explained, or Tammy explained that night, they will now move over to the next group of urban planning students, and they'll be doing a deep dive through the design standards and some of the codes around some of the new visioning to see. And then the final segment will be sort of what implementation and funding ideas for some of those big things that were on the table. So
awesome.
Project complete at the end of this year. I just have one other thing to inform the council, is that we did start a local committee of business leaders to look at how we can help our businesses begin to recover and figure out what they're missing. We had our first meeting last Friday, and I was really excited by some of the ideas that came forward and roles that people can play in sort of pitching together to help find businesses what they need for their employee safety as they reopen. We're looking at maybe putting together a local purchasing cooperative, so small businesses who've never had to buy PPE before wouldn't even know where those suppliers are. So I was really excited about that. And then looking at some businesses have gone really far in writing up their own guidelines of how they would ensure employee and customer protection once they do open back up. So we're going to be looking at if we can get some sort of standard guidance for the whole city that would help some of the businesses who haven't advanced or even start to think about that yet. So it was very exciting, the ideas. I was encouraged.
Mayor, I did have one other thing I wanted to bring up. If you guys haven't seen or heard, the Convoy of Hope is kind of changing up its process, and it's supposed to be in Arlington and Smoky Point this next Wednesday. And right now, I believe Life Church 360's team is doing the volunteer coordinating. So if any of you guys are interested or available, anytime Saturday through Wednesday, I believe there's different volunteer shifts to help pass out the food and the supplies. So just want to give you a heads up.
Thank you, Jessica. Yeah, they did call us today to see if they could utilize some cones for the drive-through aspect, and they'll be donating the food to anybody who shows up on Monday and Tuesday. And we did put it out on our social media channels this week. It'll be Monday and Tuesday of next week. So that was great. Thank you, Jessica.
Hey, Jessica?
Yeah.
Do you have contact information for that?
Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
That's all we had.
Do we need to do consent agenda or?
Oh, yeah, let's do that.
Oh. I shut mine off.
They're all kind of important this month, so, or.
Yeah, I don't see anything. You guys like to keep them on the agenda when we're spending money. And then we also like to, when we're appointing volunteers, we love that to be on the agenda too. So does anybody have any recommendations for consent? Otherwise, we'll leave them all on the regular agenda. It's easy for the directors to show up. They can show up from home now.
Okay, well, with that then, Madam Mayor, I move to adjourn.
Second.
Question.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right, meeting adjourned. It was good to see you all.
Yep, you two have a good week.
Good night.